Hey everyone, it's Brian with Instructional Tech. I am here with another video, and today we're going to be talking about teaching with video. Now, this is kind of meta because I'm teaching you with the video about teaching with video. This is pre-recorded again. I'll be over in the live chat on the on the right-hand side of your screen, and I'll be watching there, so feel free to post questions. If you're watching after the live stream, then you can just see the chat as it happened or leave a comment below, and I'd be happy to respond. I've also got a lot of links I'm going to talk about in this session today, and each of those links is going to be available in these slides, also linked in the description. So you can click through there, or you can open up this slideshow itself and look at my presenter notes, because I've got all of my links and resources there, and you can check those out as you have time. Those are going to be open. Everything I'm going to show you today is public and available on the internet. And today is talking a little bit more best practice and theory rather than an actual how-to. Now, as I'm recording right now, there is a concurrent session happening on how to actually record, and we're going to get those resources posted on the website as well. So you can go back and look at that at any point. So we've got two kind of things going on right now. Again, I'm talking about theory, best practices, habits, how you want to set it up. And then we've got that other session led by another presenter on methods to actually record, and I'll touch on them today just a little bit. But mainly this session is going to be looking at how we teach with video, what considerations to make, things to think about, because they're going to make a difference to how you interact with your students around this video. We've got four main points today. And so first I'm going to start off with a little bit of why use video. I'll talk a little bit about some of the nuance, what it allows you to do, and some things you should think about when you're thinking about using a teaching video. I'm going to give some guidelines for making good videos. And these are, some of them are research-based, others of them are my own personal experience. I taught with video well before we hit a pandemic phase. I used what's known as flipped learning. So I would create videos for my students. They would watch them at a given point, and I didn't get so specific as to it has to be at home or it has to be before class. There's a lot of flexibility that video can build into your course, and that's particularly helpful, especially now when we're only meeting online. I'm going to touch on making your own videos, especially in Elkhart, what we have available, and then we'll talk about publishing really, really quick. And it's very simple to get stuff out to your students. But again, all of this is coming from the perspective of we are teaching online almost fully now. Video needs to be a part of your course, whether it's real time or on demand. So let's go ahead and dive right in, and we're going to talk about why use video at all in the first place. And really it stems from expectations. When we're meeting face-to-face, we expect our students to come to class and we interact with them in class. Now, picture your normal class time. It's really broken up into different activities. You've got some instructional component, you have some practice component, you might have some feedback or group work or some application component, and then you'll have some kind of formative check or an exit ticket or something like that to see how your students are doing with that material. We can't replicate that exactly when we're online, mainly because that interaction piece is only in a corporate space. The only way I can do that if I'm meeting fully with a class in a Google Meet or a Zoom session or whatever is for all 30 of those kids or 40 or 50 or however many are in there at the same time. I'm missing that individual check that I have with my classroom. I'm also missing that easy back and forth that can happen when I'm walking around physically with people. This happens in PD as well. This is kind of weird for me to be kind of launching through this, but that's why we've got this chat component turned on the side where you can interact with me there. So mainly, students, we have to rethink our expectations for what engaging in a classroom looks like. On a more practical level, not every student can meet with your class every single day. And we have no idea what the case may be, but we have to consider things like we know some of our students take care of younger siblings. We know some of our students work. We know some of our students are sick. We know some of our students don't have internet. And so by setting the expectation that they only get instruction online through a Google Meet at time A, B, or C, whatever it is during the day, is limiting that student's experience in school. Video, on the other hand, this on-demand portion eliminates a couple of those problems. It doesn't completely solve the problems, but it eliminates a couple of them. First of all, if I'm providing instruction through video that can happen on demand, that student is not missing my instructional component. If all I'm doing is teaching through a Google Meet and that student can't make my Google Meets, there is no recourse. They have no way to come back and get that material. So by creating a short video ahead of time that gives them that instruction, you are now meeting that student's need. They can do that before class. They could do it at night. They may even do it in the classroom if we get back to a hybrid setting at some point. The point is they can access that material. Another thing that comes with it is you can include some of those formative checks. Now, I'm not going to get into that too much right now, but you could use something like Edpuzzle and add some questions to your video that students respond to. So it's not a perfect one-to-one replacement of talking with them and seeing what they're doing, but you can use that those other tools out there if you have a video made. The other thing you can do is you've now got a content library. You've got a way to point students to where they should be if they need remediation or extension or just to start. If we get a new student, we know that they come in with all kinds of experiences. We can use video to catch them up without having to rewind everything I'm doing. Again, that class period can continue because the student gets that gets that instructional piece. And finally, your Google Meets then don't become so much as me, the teacher, talking to you, my students, just like we're in a classroom. The online space should be for interaction and back and forth and dialogue, setting up small group appointments, using time in a Google Meet for students to talk to each other about ideas, setting up discussions, using the chat as well as verbal and audio, to really build an interactive experience for our students when we're in that space to interact together. Using Google Meet for me to talk at you is not an effective way to use that tool because I can do that in a video like I'm doing right now. So be thinking about those 4 things. How is my time changing? Am I giving students the ability to access my material at a time that works for them? Now, if they can make a Google Meet, that's great, but if they can't, a video helps me get around that. Have I built out a library to support those students? When I talk about how to make them in just a moment, you'll see that it's not a huge time investment. There are some strategies you can use to make sure that your time is as effective as possible and that you're as efficient as possible making all these different things. Is my real time enhanced because of that? Am I using Google Meet to talk with my students rather than at my students? Building relationships is really hard, and by giving more space to talk with kids through that Meet time, because you are no longer taking up so much time to just teach them, you can build those relationships or maintain those relationships if you've gone from a hybrid to a virtual. So let's kind of move from why into some of my guidelines. Now, these aren't hard and fast rules, they're more of guidelines, These are things that you should be thinking about as you're making the video, and they will trickle down to things like engagement or how many kids are actually watching them or how useful they are. And I've got a couple really quick things. So first, number 1, when I send you a video, and if you're in the chat right now, feel free to put this over there in the chat. When you are sent a video, like an email or a text or a group message, what is the first thing you look at? It's probably the time. And we all have this mental image of how much time can I spare right now for this thing that just landed in my lap. You do this every single day. For me, it's about 3 minutes. If I'm being honest with myself, if I get a video or I see a video online, I think, oh, that's kind of interesting. It's in that 3 to 5 minutes. That's kind of my limit for stopping what I'm doing to do something, unless I'm specifically looking for something else. Your students are going to do the same thing to you. When you publish that video or when you send that assignment, they're going to look at that video and see how long is it. They don't necessarily block up their time like you and I might do as professionals. They're thinking a little bit more in the moment, and if they have to invest a given amount of time, a finite amount of time to something, they're going to look at how long this video is. Now, 3 to 5 minutes is not the recommendation you're going to see from other groups. That's one that seems to work well for me, and I'm coming from a high school perspective. I did this a lot with 9th and 10th graders, and 3 to 5 minutes was kind of the sweet spot. Now, this does a couple things. First, if it's short, they're more willing to engage with it, and that's just plain and simple. We do the same thing. Second, if it's shorter, it's easier for you to make, because if you spend an hour, and I've seen videos that are an hour, or I've seen teachers publish videos that are an hour, a lecture. If you make a mistake in there, you either have to go back and fix it, or you're just going to publish it with that mistake, and then you're trying to carry that mistake back. If you chunk your videos into small sections, 3 to 5 minutes, then you are saving yourself work in the event that you make that mistake, or if your computer crashes and you lose that project. We're trying to make sure that we're being as efficient and effective as possible. 3 to 5 minutes is a great amount of time for introducing a new concept. Now, you might think in the classroom, it might take me 10 or 15 minutes to introduce that concept, but that's with questions and interruptions, and I'm checking as I go. So we're removing that instructional piece on its own, and really, it's not a whole lot of talking. 3 to 5 minutes for you to clearly, succinctly talk through how to do something or an idea that you're explaining or you're introducing a concept. 3 to 5 minutes is a really good range for you to start with them as you're beginning to think about using these as an instructional tool. There are 5 types of videos as well that you can kind of break out. And these ideas or these types come from a book called The Distance Learning Playbook. That's been really, really helpful to me as I've put this together. So we've got the think along, direct instruction, a worked example, a lecture, and a share session. I'm going to kind of work backwards through this list. Rather than backwards, I'm going to jump around a little bit. So a share session and a think along are kind of similar in the sense that you are showing the process of something. The main difference is that in a share session, I may have my camera set up and I'm modeling an activity. I've got a link in the video description as well as in the slides, you can get down there as well, to a share session of a teacher cooking something. They're in a kitchen and they're showing the process that they use to prepare a meal. So that teacher is narrating what's going on. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Cooking videos are all the rage right now. We all know that because we've seen the kids watching them. But share session is kind of in the process, you are acting as that narrator, Bob Ross style. So you're talking about what you're doing while the students are watching you do it. A think along, on the other hand, is you're giving that meta-narrative process. This is the internal voice that some of you have heard in the Smeckens training for the English teachers out there. The internal voice is you're dialoguing with yourself about what you're reading or looking at or engaging with. So as a teacher, I may have a diagram up on my screen. I'm a science teacher, so I could have a cell. Hey, this shape, we've seen this shape before. What might this shape be? Oh, that's right. It has to do with this or X, Y, or Z. So the think along is modeling that thinking process where you're engaging with the material in the moment as you want a student to do, whereas the share session is dialoguing and narrating that process that you're going through in the moment right there. A worked example, this is taking a completed piece of work. This could be a math problem, it could be an essay, and it can be an example or a non-example. So I'm not working through the process itself, I am taking the completed item right here. So it could be a work sample if you have an exemplar that you want them to go through. And I'm going to narrate my thinking voice as I go through that item. I'm using it as a way to teach though. So I'm not just using a think along to model, I'm not using a worked example to model the think along process. I'm using the worked example as my teaching model. So I'm not doing it in the moment. Students can see the whole picture, the start to finish completed event. And I'm using it to call out specific things. So maybe I'm looking at how to distribute something in a longer math problem, a multi-step math problem, or I'm looking at an author's use of theme in a completed poem. It can be whatever you want it to be, but you're using it as the exemplar, the thing you're dissecting in order to teach a point. Direct instruction and lecture are very, very similar with one key difference. Direct instruction, you are building in some kind of formative check. The video I've linked here is from a young elementary class where they're learning the long A sound. And the teacher is very, very intentional about say it with me now. A, play. And they model just like they would in the classroom with a whole group of students in front of them. This may also be a point where you include some of those formative checks. So if you throw it into an ed puzzle or you've got a short quiz after the fact, direct instruction is an interactive engagement component, but you have to use some other tools, whether it's in your lesson structure itself or you're pulling your video into another program to give you some of those tools. Finally, a lecture on the last hand is kind of, I am the expert. I am a content expert and I am giving you information right now. I'm not doing a whole lot of formative checks. Maybe that's going to come later in a full Google Meet or in a activity that the student is going to submit or some kind of work sample. And again, these 5 are not all encompassing, but most instructional videos can be broken down into one of these 5 types. So as you're thinking about your own style, which of these types do you tend to lean towards? If you're a teacher who gets a lot of interaction through your lecture because you're moving around a classroom and you're calling on people and you're using manipulatives and it's an interactive component, you might be looking at making a direct instruction or a share session kind of video or a think along kind of video where you're prompting students as you go. If you're a teacher who's got a sample on the board and you kind of process your way through it, that's more of a think along versus a worked example kind of thing. If you tend to give a lot of information up front, then you're looking at more of a lecture style video with a follow-up coming later. So be thinking about how you normally teach or what your end goal is, and you can use one of these structures in order to accomplish that goal. Now let's talk about making your own video for a moment. There are a lot of ways to do this. There are innumerable ways to do this. I'm not going to cover them all. I want to start by saying, think about what you want to make and then choose the tool to make that video. Here's an example. If I'm doing a think along or a direct instruction kind of thing, I may use my iPad because I can show my screen and I can annotate on my screen. And I can have a sample there and I can show my students what I'm doing. Or even simpler, I can hook up my iPad as a camera in Google Meet and I can just point it at the screen, or I can point it at a piece of paper and annotate right there on my desk. On the other hand, if I'm doing a share session and I'm showing a process, I'm going to be out in the field and we're doing something with our hands, or I'm in a workshop, or I'm in the repair shop, whatever it happens to be, I'm just going to take the iPad and use it as a camera. I'm not going to go around and use a whiteboard to talk about how to repair a cylinder inside a car engine. It's not really helpful. I would rather show the student what I'm doing with my hands. So choosing your tools kind of depends on what you want to do. It also depends on your time. If you don't have a ton of time to commit to creating a video and editing and chopping things in or out, that's going to kind of dictate where you go. So be thinking about that. So kind of go back to your types. Which one do I need to make? What is my goal for this? And then when I am ready to start making my video, these are kind of our core tools in Elkhart. Now, if you're watching from outside the district, you may have access to some, you may not. I don't know. So this is from Elkhart's perspective, and this is not, again, an exhaustive list. This is just kind of things that we already have documented that you can start with. So in Seesaw, if you're an elementary teacher, in Seesaw, you can create short videos. And bear with me, I have heard some of you say, I can only do a 5-minute video. Don't do more than 5 minutes. Please don't do more than 5 minutes. If you really have to do more than that, break it up, scaffold it, chunk it out so students engage with the component, they do some work with it, and then they engage with the next piece. And you can scaffold and scale and build on each other, but please do not send your students a 20-minute video. Break it into small pieces. In Seesaw, you can start an activity, record an instructional sample using the whiteboard drawing tools, and send that out as a template so students engage with it as they're doing their work. At Secondary, we don't have a built-in way to do that in Canvas, but at Secondary, we have Explain EDU. That's a whiteboarding app fully featured with annotation, drawing, images, media, whatever. You can install that from self-service, is paid for you, and you can use that to get started. And we have videos and blog posts and articles on how to start with both of those. Again, all of that is linked below. iOS, if you have your iPad, you can turn on the screen recorder in your control center. So you go into Settings, Control Center, turn on the screen recorder. That will record what's on your screen. So if you have a PDF that you want to talk through to do a share session or to do a worked example, you can open that up, record the screen right there, annotate and do your thing, and then puff, you're done. You can just use iOS screen recording, nothing fancy about it. You can just work on your screen as you would otherwise and then publish it out to your students. You can record to Google Meet. So I can start a Google Meet, not invite anybody, open up a second screen to share my slides, and turn on that recording. When it's done, it saves to your Google Drive. And then you can download and put it wherever you want it to go or leave it in Drive. The thing you need to be careful about is that those Google Meet recordings are only good for 30 days now. So if you're relying on Google Drive to keep everything, you're going to have to download a copy of it and then put it back in as a normal file rather than the standard Meet recording. And we have a video and a blog post on how to do that. You can also use Apple's Clips app if you're looking to do something a little bit more creative. And this may be where student videos come into play. I want students to make a video showing what they can do. They could use Clips to record some snippets, add some stickers or annotations, and then send it back off to you. You could do the same thing. Again, each of these has been documented. We have examples, we have YouTube videos, we've got a lot of different ways to use them, but we've never kind of shown it whole big picture start to finish. So again, thinking through our guidelines, I need to make it short, single ideas. What kind of video do I need to make? I need to define that. What is my goal for the lesson? And then that helps me choose the tool that I would use to complete that. And on here, I don't even have the camera. You could just turn on the camera and make a camera recording as well. The last thing is publishing. I've decided to make a video. I'm going to take the plunge. I've decided on my type. I've made it. Now, where do I put it? And I have one word for you. YouTube. Put your video on YouTube. And here's why. If you put it straight into Canvas, you're going to run out of course space really quickly. Videos are kind of large files. You only have a limited amount of space in Canvas. So while you keep your video there, you're going to run out of space very, very quickly. Second, when your students go to look for help videos, where do they go? They go to YouTube. They're used to going there. There are good tutorials there. Your Google account is already linked to a YouTube account. It's the same thing. So if you go to youtube.com and sign in, boom, you have a channel available to you right now that you can start uploading material to. When you upload, you can organize those into playlists. Those can be by topic, they could be by theme, they could be by unit, they could be by review, or whatever you want them to be. So you can organize things a little bit better on YouTube than you can anywhere else where we're putting materials. And then finally, if you want to keep it private, you can do that in YouTube. You can set a video to unlisted, and that means if a student has a direct link through Canvas or through Seesaw, they can still get to it directly, but they can't find it if they just find your channel online. So you can have what looks like a blank channel, but is actually full of teaching material. It's up to you what level you want to go. I would advocate for having a public channel, mainly because contributing knowledge to the broader scope of the internet is always a good thing. Different perspectives are a good thing. Different resources are a good thing. And it can give your students a launching point to find other helpful resources or to explore a topic they didn't know they were interested in. By using YouTube, we're taking advantage of a platform that's already available through your Google account. It's a platform where students are used to going to, and it takes the hassle out of everything. If you've never uploaded before, I have a couple blog posts and a couple YouTube videos on how to do that from an iPad or from a computer, along with every step along the way, every box to tick, every box to fill out, what to type, what to put where. It's very, very simple. And once you get into that habit, it becomes very quick to do. And that's it. That's really kind of when you're thinking about using teaching videos, those are the things. What are my guidelines? Is it short? Is it to the point? Am I taking it out of the main time flow, that linear flow of time that my students can't all participate in? Am I changing my class expectations? Am I being very specific with my material? Students want to see you. They don't want to see some other YouTube guy teaching them their history class if you are the history teacher. They want to see you doing it. This is a way to maintain that connection. Pick a type of video based on your goal. Pick a method of recording. And then publishing. Publishing is the easiest one. Just get it on YouTube and you'll be good to go. Give students those expectations. Help them through the process. Show them how to watch a video to learn from it. This would be a great way to model a think-along even. If you've got a video playing and you're pausing and you're stopping and you're reflecting and you're going back even, you can model all of these processes to help students kind of get into this new habit. It's a new muscle that needs to be developed. And it's only going to happen if we're intentional and specific and clear about what we're trying to do. So thank you all for watching. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for participating in the chat, for those of you who are in the chat. If you're coming after the fact, again, leave a comment below. We'd love to hear more feedback on how you're using video or questions. We can make some follow-ups. We really want to make sure that you're getting what you need out of this online teaching time. And this is one thing that we thought would be a great way to get started on the right foot, especially as we look towards second semester. So hopefully you're feeling encouraged. Hopefully you're feeling empowered. Stay well, stay in touch, and we'll see you soon.